You're listening to The Hard Truth with John Deaton. John Deaton is a Marine veteran, lawyer, and best-selling author who stared down poverty, survived street violence, and beat cancer to fight another day. From the streets to the courtroom, Deaton has taken on corporate greed and fought against government fraud and overreach. Always for the little guy, a proud father of 3 girls, Deaton brings you the raw, unfiltered truth that hits hard and holds nothing back. Join us as we dive into his journey, his vision, and what he hopes to bring to the people of Massachusetts.
Don't touch that dial or change the channel because it's Sunday at 7 p.m. on iHeart's WRKO. You're listening to The Hard Truth, and I'm John Deaton. Good evening, everyone. It's been a long week. We're all still reeling from the Charlie Kirk assassination, more shootings, more violence, violence against ICE agents are taking place. I got to tell you, we live in very, very troubling times. The division in this country, I've talked about it on this show, it's at a toxic level. You know, we've got to learn to stop dehumanizing the other side. You know, it's like I said last week, when you call people Hitler and monsters and say that there's no chance for a democracy hereafter, we'll never see elections again, and you just keep going back and forth, it's going to lead to violence. And I unfortunately believe there'll be more violence. I hope there's not. But my God, Congress couldn't even agree on a resolution, when that Melissa Hartman got murdered. There was a resolution, and it celebrated her life. It condemned the violence. It was bipartisan, and it was unanimous. Charlie Kirk gets murdered, assassinated violently on the public screen, and Congress can't even get together and come up with a way to celebrate the man's life and condemn political violence. It's just another divisional thing in this country. It's right up there, right, with vaccines and masks and COVID and elections, and where, if something bad happened to this country, like 9/11 again, would we come together? Or would we just point the finger at each other? Would one side say, see, America deserved it? I don't know. I really don't know. It is very, very sad to think that people couldn't come together just to acknowledge a man's life. It doesn't mean you agree with everything he said. But if we struggle as a country to condemn political violence for people exercising their free speech, I don't know if we can ever unite, to be honest with you, because that's something very, very basic. And I'm telling you, free speech is at stake. It's been under attack for years. Under Biden, it was under attack. Okay, the Hunter laptop, Facebook, X, which was Twitter back then, the FBI, the White House telling them, take that off. That's disinformation, deplatforming individuals, and people in the Biden administration celebrated it. They cheered it on. Donald Trump got deplatformed from X or Facebook, and this conservative voice got shut down because they said it was hate speech. And now we see people on the right celebrating, okay, when someone on the other side gets deplatformed. You don't do that. The First Amendment does not care who the president is. The First Amendment does not care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, a liberal or a conservative. It doesn't care if you're gay, you're straight, you're transgender. It does not care. And we got people like Pam Bondi, who's the Attorney General, saying hate speech is going to be eliminated. Hate speech is protected. Okay, it's only speech that incites violence, speech that that you don't like is protected. I served 7 years in the Marine Corps, not to give you the right not to be offended, but to give the right to be offended. You can be offended if someone says something you don't like, if someone says something that's anti-Semitic, unless they are interfering with folks, unless they're inciting violence against Jews, they said something that's hateful. They said something that's disgusting, and we should condemn it. But the government does not step in and take away someone's right. So when we get to the tough student who wrote an op-ed that criticized Israel, okay, so what? She criticized Israel. We criticized Biden when he was president. The left is criticizing Trump, and he's the president. That's what we do in America. Yet that student's visa was revoked, and Marco Rubio says, well, it's a privilege. It's not a right. Yes, I understand that a student visa, but the person was here, living in American soil. We still honor the First Amendment, and it works both ways. And, you know, just remember this, everybody, to all the people out there that are cheering when you see your side take away someone's right to free speech and you cheer it, just know something. The other side's going to be in charge again. If you think that the Democrats are never going to be in office again, if there's never going to be a president who happens to be a Democrat who leans left, then you're fooling yourself. Okay, we could see that in 2028 if the economy, something goes bad or things go wrong, if unemployment's too high, if inflation doesn't get taken under control, then we could see a Gavin Newsom as president. I certainly don't want to see it, but we could. And we could see a return to them saying to now your team, that's hate speech. Take that person off X, take that person off Facebook, take that person off Instagram. You know, we have to be consistent when we honor things like the First Amendment. Even if it's disgusting and revolting, a person has a right to say it. And unless it incites violence, unless it creates panic, like fire in a crowded theater, then a person has a right to say it. If you live in America, it's one of the things that separates us from totalitarianisms and separates us from dictatorships. But we are definitely continuing to see an assault on the First Amendment, and I sure hope people understand how delicate it is. Now, I want to switch gears. And listen, you can reach me at john@hardtruthshow.com, john@hardtruthshow.com. You can challenge what I say, and I got to tell you, I'm switching gears because I am troubled by the lack of transparency that we seem to get when it comes to the FBI, when it comes under Comey, and now it's under Patel. When it was Biden in charge, you know, did you trust anything the FBI said? I mean, they lied. You had all these intelligence officers literally intentionally lie and say that the Hunter Biden laptop was fake, that it was Russian disinformation, that it wasn't true. They knew it was true. And they threatened and coerced social media platforms to not talk about it, right? Just like you remember, you couldn't even say that COVID came from the Wuhan lab. You couldn't say that it came from a Chinese lab. Everybody in the world, the most logical explanation was that the COVID virus came from the COVID lab in China, considering that that's where COVID started. But you couldn't even say that because we had government officials like the FBI, the CDC, all these agencies telling people lies. And I had hoped that we would see an improvement. But I got to ask you, do you trust everything that the government and the FBI has been saying as it relates to Epstein And I'm bringing up Epstein first, and then we're going to move on to Charlie Kirk. But they produce a video of the cell block that has 4 minutes deleted from it. You can clearly see that it has been edited, but the government, under Pam Bondi, puts it out and says, look here, do you believe that the cameras weren't working? It just happened. All the cameras just happened to not be working. Do you believe that the two guards both happened to fall asleep at the same time that Epstein killed himself, hung himself? Do you believe that his jail cell was accidentally opened, unlocked, so that someone else potentially could go in there and kill him? Do you believe all the things that the FBI has been telling us? Or do you think that they are withholding stuff from us? And I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that the FBI is lying to us. And that includes Kash Patel. That includes Dan Bongino. They went in there. They set a whole different tune before they got into those offices, and they've completely changed their mind. And then they tell us that, okay, just go away, right? Here's a doctored tape. Here's an autopsy report that says that the bone in his neck, which is most consistent with manual or ligature strangulation, that's broken. Normally that bone, it's a floating bone near your Adam's apple. If you hang yourself with a sheet, for example, like they submit, it moves, so it wasn't fractured. But if you have hands crushing the neck or a ligature, like some kind of, extension cord or something, or rope or chain or something like that, it often breaks that bone in your neck. Well, Epstein's was. Do we believe the FBI? Next, we're going to move to Charlie Kirk in the FBI. You're listening to The Hard Truth. I'm John Deaton. Welcome back to The Hard Truth. You're listening to John Deaton. That's me, everybody. Before the break, we were summing up the very incomplete, suspicious, what I believe can be fairly characterized as lies by our federal government, the FBI, regarding Epstein's death, his alleged suicide. We're still waiting on the documents. We're still waiting to see other perpetrators be prosecuted. I submit to you all out there that both government under Biden didn't produce the documents, and the government's not producing the documents under Trump. And Trump threw Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. They were beefing. Trump was never on the island. He was on the plane a few times. I understand. I don't even think it has to do necessarily with Trump. And I didn't think Biden was involved. It's about the donors, man. It's about the billionaires. Okay, it's about Larry Summers. It's about these Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, big names that contribute to both parties who are involved. But it is insane to say that, okay, Epstein's the only one to rape those girls on that island. He's the only one. Pam Bondi said we got thousands of hours. And all of those hours, thousands of hours of tapes are just Epstein. Okay, the Epstein victims have gotten together and they've said that they're going to start naming names themselves and that they're going to produce their own list of Epstein clients. We know Prince Andrew was involved. Again, there's pictures of Bill Clinton. He's clothed, but he's being massaged over his clothing as he sits on a bench on the island. The girl looks like she's 15 or 16 years old that is giving him a massage. All right. And so it's not that they're protecting like a president, or it's not like Trump is protecting himself. It's about these donors, man. I'm telling you, it's about the billionaires who are running the show. I think it is fair to say that unequivocally Epstein was involved in intelligence, and I mean the CIA, and I mean Mossad. It is absolutely crystal clear. The former U.S. attorney from Florida had basically said he was told to give Epstein the get out of jail free card, to give Epstein that sweetheart deal that for raping children, did not go to prison, got to go home on the weekends and all that crap, because his bosses at the Department of Justice told him that, do it, give him the deal. Epstein is with intelligence. That's what's been done, and that's what's been said. So that intelligence, undoubtedly, CIA, Mossad, and they just don't want it to come out. And we need transparency. Okay, now that's just Epstein. Let me ask you guys out there. I want you to email me, john@hardtruthshow.com, john@hardtruthshow.com. Do you believe everything coming out of the FBI related to Charlie Kirk's assassination? Do you? I'm gonna play something. It may go past the break, so I may have to interrupt it. But I was on a popular podcast called Redacted, and the title of this is "Ex-Prosecutor," that talking about me, says the FBI's case has serious loopholes despite the notes, text, DNA evidence, and arrest. Something about the official Charlie Kirk assassination story feels off. John Deaton joins us. That is from the Redacted podcast. I'm reading their post on X. And so I want you to listen to this, my appearance with these hosts talking about Charlie Kirk's assassination.
Well, when you listen to the press conference announcing charges against Tyler Robinson, particularly at the state level in Utah, it sounds like an open and shut case, doesn't it? Surveillance footage, text messages, parents that turned him in, an exit wound right out of the neck or shot in the neck, all from the front, all pretty straightforward. DNA evidence right on the trigger of the gun. They find the gun. They find shell casings with Antifa messages written on them. So done. Move along here. Nothing to see. The text messages seem like they're pretty darn damning, laying everything out exactly how he did it, his regrets about doing it, how he felt like he needed to do it, all of it. So just move along, right?
It's a very complete story.
Yeah, it's very convenient.
Well,
but
are you satisfied? Are you not satisfied?
I don't know. I'm not satisfied, but there's emerging video evidence and inconsistencies that paint a totally different picture here, raise questions. Was this guy a patsy, that he had perhaps nothing to do with it at all? For one thing, the FBI only released a video that shows the alleged shooter running, but the camera on the building would have shown him laying in a prone position, firing the shot, as you can see here on your screen. So we only get after this individual is running. We don't get him laying in a prone position. We certainly don't get him firing a gun, even though the camera was pointed in that position and would have absolutely covered the prone position of this shooter. The FBI's own video they released on their YouTube channel doesn't show it, but it's alleged in the indictment. They say it, and the Utah state prosecutors say it as well, that they had elbow prints, they have knee prints. And he was laying in a prone position and fired this kill shot. One shot, that's all it took. He even saved the shell casing that was found later in the forest, because it's a bolt-action rifle, so you don't pop it out. It would have stayed inside of the rifle. Then they chose, though, to cut off the first few seconds of this video. We'd love to see the actual footage of this, show us him laying there. But the thing is, it's happening right at the exact same moment that Charlie Kirk is being shot. When we see him running, we know this because of the timestamp. When you see, of course, the rooftop shot from inside the walkway in the cafe area of the campus. We match that with the video, of course, from inside the university walkway, and you can see him already sprinting as people are ducking. He's already in full sprint as people begin to duck. So he picks up the rifle and runs at just a full sprint and the people are just now reacting to this? Again,
Now, do
show
we
us the
have
footage.
the video of him jumping? Because I also
here.
have questions about that. When he jumps off, there is a lot of commotion already in the quad area because a shot's been fired and someone's been killed over dead. Why are the people in the background walking so casually at a casual gait if just a corner away from them people are screaming and running and those people are just walking casually? Does that make sense to you?
There's a lot that doesn't make sense to me. I mean, and what kind of gun? Did he throw the gun down? Did it adjust the scope as he throws it off the roof there? Was he carrying the gun at all? It appears that he is if you look at the high-def version of this. But interestingly, the FBI's own website on their own YouTube channel shows this. After he shot and killed Charlie Kirk, he jumped off the roof and ran away. He left a gun and ammunition in a wooded area near the university. This is the YouTube video that the FBI published initially. And I hadn't caught this before, but they're saying clearly in this video, he shot and killed Charlie Kirk. He, in this video, is the one that we're after. He jumped off and ran away. He shot and killed Charlie Kirk. Well, how do you know that at this point when you publish this video? How do you know that he's the one specifically that shot and killed Charlie Kirk? Where in this video does it show it? Please show it to us. So the FBI's own YouTube channel says this. There's a lot of other evidence I want to get to here in a moment. But I do want to bring in an ex-prosecutor, U.S. Marine, John Deaton, former U.S. Senate candidate who knows these things inside and out, both from the defense position and on the offensive position as a prosecutor. John, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
So I guess when you're as a defender, as a defense attorney specifically, maybe put on your defense attorney hat for a second here, and you're looking at this indictment both at the federal level, at the state level, you see a lot of loopholes here. What are they?
Well, the first thing is we've learned that the suspect, this guy, has not cooperated. So if that's true, then there's no confession. Normally in a situation like this, the FBI would rush to get a confession, which alleviates a lot of the loopholes that you're starting to point at. And so really what you're engaging here doing right now for your audience is exactly asking questions where the dots the government cannot connect. And listen, to execute someone, you're going to have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. So the government's going to have to answer some of these questions. Where is the rifle? Where's the videos? Defense attorney, first thing I'm going to want to do is hit the government with discovery request that says, give me every video. What about neighborhood cameras, all the Ring cameras? And then you start basically working backwards to establish a timeline and whether or not you can poke reasonable doubt holes in that timeline.
Before we take our break, I want you to just think of that. Think about the fact here we have a video of a fella running right as the shot is being fired that kills Charlie Kirk. How come the video does not show him laying in the prone position to take the shot? Why is it immediately running? And when you see him running on the rooftop, you don't see a long rifle, the kind that they're saying was used to kill Charlie Kirk. You don't see that. And there was no time to break down that rifle. And even if you broke down the rifle, even if you practice it 1,000 times, it's still going to take you, 30 seconds, some kind of amount of time. But instead, this guy's running immediately as the shot is being fired, and we don't see a rifle. And even if you was able to break down the rifle, it doesn't fit in the backpack. There's so many questions that the FBI hasn't answered yet. Okay, and when you read the messages, the text messages, it doesn't sound like one of these 22-year-olds. It sounds like someone my age talking about squad car and things of that. When we come back, we'll do more. Welcome back to The Hard Truth. You're listening to John Deaton on iHeart's WRKO. You can reach the show at john@hardtruthshow.com, john@hardtruthshow.com. Okay, before we took the break, I was playing you my appearance on the Redacted podcast. And we were going through the evidence, including the lack of evidence that has so far been offered by the FBI to tie Tyler Robinson to the murder of Charlie Kirk. Now, I'm not suggesting that this young man didn't kill him yet. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying he wasn't the shooter. I'm not saying anything. We don't have enough evidence yet. I'm just pointing out that there's a lot of unanswered questions. And because we have this lack of trust from our institutions like our FBI, it's hard to swallow that they just want us to keep, this is what we're telling you, move on in your life and forget any of the other details. And I refuse to do so. And many of you I know out there refuse to do so. But let's continue with my appearance on the Redacted podcast. Check it out.
I'm just very focused on this indictment and the loopholes that defense would have to push here, because you're already seeing the lack of evidence from the video side. We're seeing there was a camera right behind Charlie Kirk. Where is that video evidence that would show the trajectory of the bullets? There's apparently a TPUSA individual who took the camera down, has that information. You can see here he grabs it right out of the back of the tent and then puts it in a bag. I know Candace Owens has been asking, hey, can we see this footage, please? It would certainly answer the questions, which trajectory this bullet came from. In addition to which, we also have now evidence that the university has already been doing construction work on the exact site. So we have overhead camera footage now showing like they're actively almost like taking over this crime scene. I mean, this is to my mind still a crime scene. So now the university is already paving over this entire area. What would you say as a defense attorney?
I would say that the first motions I would be filing was a spoliation motion under the law. And if the government can't produce that evidence, then you would get a spoliation charge where the judge would say to the jury, the government did not secure this evidence. You can assume that it was not in favor of the government's theory of the case, and therefore the evidence has been spoiled. As a defense attorney, I would zero in on the person jumping off the roof saying, where is the gun? And then you break it down in the milliseconds of he didn't have time to break that rifle down. The rifle would not fit in his backpack regardless. Where is the rifle? And, that's one big issue where then you start getting a chalkboard and saying reasonable doubt number one, reasonable doubt number two, and you just list out all this evidence piecemeal.
Now, I have one more question about how the FBI is kind of peeing in the pool here, because they're showing up for media appearances, which continues to change the narrative. Kash Patel even saying he was there to begin with is getting in the way of investigators. What does that hand a defense in terms of what they're saying? I mean, we all know any kind of litigation, you need to be quiet to make your best case.
Absolutely. And the fact that Kash Patel tweeted out immediately that they had the suspect when in fact they didn't. They had that George Zinn fella, the elderly guy, acting as a decoy. You can make a big mountain of evidence just out of that. And then you start getting into other theories of alternate explanations that caused Charlie death, a rush to judgment. Listen, this isn't a slam dunk. And listen, Charlie Kirk deserves justice. Anyone who was in there deserves justice, be brought to justice, I should say, that was involved in this assassination. But, Kash Patel, quite frankly, objectively, is getting in his own way.
So what you're saying to us, sorry, go ahead.
No, I want to ask you before we let you go here, from a Marine perspective, and that's, part of your background as well, not just as a prosecutor and a defense attorney. But when you see that timeline and you see this individual in full sprint mode, and when you match up the timestamps and seeing he's in full sprint mode when the people in the audience are just about to start ducking, like, does that comport with what your experience in the military would be? Sort of a pop up and take off really that fast with a rifle after a shot like that?
No, not at all. And that's what I meant by a defense attorney will slow the video up and highlight everything that you're highlighting to drive that reasonable doubt. But it doesn't match your own common sense. And then obviously you're going to get trained professionals as expert witnesses who can also poke holes in it that it's just inconsistent with reality.
All All right. John Deaton, we appreciate you joining us as we're unpacking this, but something just is not adding up here. And we're hearing from judges and lawyers, just like yourself, who are saying there's a lot of problems with this case right now. So we're going to see if this individual walks free because they've screwed this up so badly. John, great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
Okay, so now, am I suggesting that Tyler Robinson is going to walk free and that is not going to be found guilty? No. But think about the sloppiness of this. Think about Kash Patel just literally tweeting out that we got him. The very first suspect. That was a huge, ill-advised thing for him to do. You literally just gave a jury potential reasonable doubt right there. Okay? Who is that guy? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my client, Tyler Robinson, wasn't even the first person the FBI thought. The FBI director of the FBI, Kash Patel, tweeted out that they had solved the case within the first 10 seconds of the murder. And so I don't get it. And then when you add this lack of transparency that the government and the FBI has been consistently putting out, and it's not just Trump's team, it's the Biden team. It seems that they want us to be morons, right? They expect the public to be idiots. Remember, we're talking about a government that for over 65 years wouldn't allow us any of the JFK files. And they always come up with, oh, well, there's still people alive. And they don't want to just come clean and admit the CIA killed an American president, because that's what happened. Plain and simple, it's what happened. Whether it was because of the Bay of Pigs or whether it because of he was going to dismantle the CIA, okay? But it is undoubtedly Lee Harvey Oswald did not act alone. He was a government confidential informant. That's who Lee Harvey Oswald was. He was hired by the CIA at some point. He was on government payroll. Okay, this has all been disclosed in documents. But for almost, 70 years, they just don't want us to know that our own government killed one of our own presidents, because that's what happened. And so, so many unanswered questions related to Charlie Kirk. I mean, listen, when you add the things that we went over here tonight that I did on that podcast, and then you hear that the medical examiner said that Charlie's bones were like Superman, and that he was so healthy and his bone density and structure was so strong that that it stopped the bullet. Well, where is the bullet? Is what I want to know. Is it still in Charlie? Is that what the government wants us to believe? Would they bury Charlie if the round was inside him? Or would they get the round out to match the ballistics with the actual firearm, rifle, that they're saying Tyler Robinson used to shoot him? And I can tell you from both hunting experiences, from my time in the Marine Corps, learning, ammunition and different types of weapons. I mean, this was basically a hunting rifle, but 145 yards. It was between 145 and 170 yards. I'm not sure exactly. That's not very far, to be honest with you. And when you're 145 yards away and you have a high-powered rifle with a high-powered scope from an elevated position with a clear line of sight, it's not that difficult of a shot if you've practiced it a few times, if you practice using that scope and and how to calibrate it to put it for 200 yards or 150 yards or 100 yards, whatever you estimate your distance to be. But at 145 yards, that caliber ammunition would go through 9,999 humans out of 10,000, I guess. I mean, that there's only an entrance wound, there's no exit wound. I mean, all these things are possible. And the point is, people wouldn't engage in conspiracy theories if the government was just honest. If the FBI was just honest and gave us accurate information, then there wouldn't be these conspiracy theories, right? My God, Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, has on 5 occasions publicly said that Israel did not assassinate Charlie Kirk. I mean, because people like Candace Owens and others, even Tucker Carlson, are implying that maybe Israel was behind it. I'm not saying that. I'm not suggesting that. I certainly, at this point, don't believe that. But we wouldn't be speculating like that. These people wouldn't be out there if we had a competent FBI that was honest. You listen to The Hard Truth. I'm John Deaton. Welcome back to The Hard Truth. I'm John Deaton. You are listening to iHeart's WRKO 680 AM. You can reach me at The Hard Truth. John at hardtruthshow.com. John at hardtruthshow.com. After saying that about 500 times, you think I would be able to do it without slipping up. But hey, we keep it real here on The Hard Truth. And what else is there to talk about? There's so much to talk about. Mayor Wu is going to be the next mayor of Boston. In fact, Josh Kraft, who was challenging her, has dropped out after the preliminary because Mayor Wu got 75% of the vote. And so she's running unopposed. And it really is a tragic thing. Listen, I think Mayor Wu is a disaster for Boston. I think that there are basic things that you don't do. You could protect people's rights without protecting rapists and criminals. I mean, I don't agree with the administration and some of the, obviously, implementation that they've done with deportations. But if our elected officials would work with the government, then they could control some of it. But there's a certain things that should be easy, right? It should be very easy to say this guy who came over here 2 years ago illegally and is charged with child rape or has been selling drugs, that we're going to deport that guy. And when he or she is arrested, we're going to hold that person that is A, here illegally in the last few years, B, has been charged with a violent crime like child rape or drug distribution. That should be an easy call. Like, here, ICE, take this bad guy and get him out of our country. Get him away from other young kids so that he doesn't rape or molest another child. Let's make sure that if he's sold drugs and distributed drugs, that he doesn't give any more of these fentanyl-contaminated drugs that kill people the very first time they try it. Let's get them off the street. Those are easy. I mean, I don't understand why they would side for those folks. Now, I understand siding with other folks. Someone's been here 10 years, and yes, they're here illegally, and they have a family, and they're paying their taxes, and they're on the books. or their visa is expired. Yes, I understand they're technically here illegal, but that's not a drug dealer. That's not a child rapist. We got to be able to make a distinction. But Mayor Wu and Governor Healy are the type that just say, no, we're going to hide the drug dealers and the rapists so that ICE doesn't catch them. And you know what that does? That exasperates the problem because now, because you're not cooperating to get the bad guys out, then ICE comes in and then it's chaotic. And I may not agree with the way ICE always operates. I certainly have some strong disagreements, like snatching that tough student because she wrote an op-ed against Israel. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. Okay, but getting rid of a rapist is an easy one. It's easy. Here, get rid of them. But they don't do that. And so they protect those folks. But that's who the mayor is going to be again, because that's who the people have voted, you know. But what is so disheartening is that some of these individuals run unopposed. You know, one of the most demoralizing things that I experienced when I ran against Elizabeth Warren, I remember going to the primary day when I went to vote for myself. And I voted, you know, where I live in Bolton. And when I got to the ballot, I was the only contested race, right? All the others were uncontested in the primaries. It could be a council member. It could be any type of committee person, school district. It would just be unopposed Democrat, unopposed, unopposed Democrat, unopposed Democrat. Same thing in the general election. When I voted for myself against Elizabeth Warren, it was like the only contested race, except for like President of the United States. Everything else at the state level was uncontested, and it was all Democrats. And my God, that's not healthy. I would feel the same way if it was all Republicans. And we've got to do something about that. Whether you're an independent or whether you're a disenfranchised Democrat, whether you're Republican, we've got to get good people to challenge this one-party rule because it is killing Massachusetts. It really is. It is absolutely every statewide office, every federal office, every Congress member, both United States senators, secretary of state, treasurer, auditor, attorney general, governor, lieutenant governor. It just goes on and on. The state senate and the state house, 85% Democrats, and that's just not a healthy system. So if you're out there and you're listening and you've thought about running for local office, I encourage you to do it. Reach out to me. I'll help you in any way that I can. We've got to get common sense people voting. And so that's the news on the election front. Mayor Wu will be our next mayor. On the Republican gubernatorial race, we have obviously Brian Shortsleeve, who was on the show, Mike Keneally, who was on the show. Rumor has it that there will be a third person to enter the race. A lot of rumors out there. I have no idea, but a lot of talk about Mike McNogue, very successful entrepreneur and very impressive guy as well. If he does get in the race, we're going to have a three-person governor's race for the Republican primary to go up against Maura Healey in 2026. Now, on the Senate side, there's been some news. We know that Jake Auchincloss, Congressman Auchincloss, has officially said he will not challenge Markey. He's not going to get in the Democratic primary. However, strong rumor that Seth Moulton He was in Salem with a TV crew or a video crew camera following him. He was asked, is he going to get in the race against Markey for the Democratic primary for U.S. Senator? He did not rule it out. He said he had not made up his mind, but a lot of indications are pointing that Seth Moulton is going to challenge Ed Markey for the Democratic primary for U.S. Senator. Also, there's still a rumor that Ayanna Pressley is going to also potentially enter the Democratic primary to challenge Ed Markey. Now, that will be interesting. I can tell you that Seth Moulton has $2.2 million cash on hand. Ed Markey has $2.2 million cash on hand. And you know what would be a beautiful thing if it happened? Just for it to be a healthy system, is that if the Democrats had a contested primary and the Republicans didn't this time around for U.S. Senate. Now, that'd be interesting. Like last year when I ran, of course, Elizabeth Warren, no one challenged her on the Democratic primary, so she didn't have to worry about a primary. I had two other fellas get on the ballot, and so I had to fight them to win the primary, and I ended up winning the primary, and I ended up winning it pretty big. I got 65% of the vote, despite 3 people being on the ballot. However, the primary is September 3rd. So I won the primary big, but it gave me 9 weeks to try to challenge Elizabeth Warren. Now just imagine that. I got 2 months to challenge someone as entrenched in a big name like hers, and I had $800,000 left in cash on hand. She had $23 million, and she was Elizabeth Warren, one of the most well-known United States senators in the United States of America, and I was a first-time candidate with no name recognition, and I did get over 40%. I did have 1.3 million people vote for me, so thank you. But it sure would be nice to see the Democrats fighting it out, the Republicans get behind a good candidate, and we have a real good challenge for Ed Markey, because I think Ed Markey, I think he can beat Seth Moulton. I don't know if he's in the race and Seth Moulton and Ayanna Pressley are all in the race. Who knows what happens there? But listen, Lori Trahan, Elizabeth Warren, a slew of others have already endorsed Ed Markey. Imagine that. They've rushed to endorse a guy that has been in office for 50 years. 1976. Jimmy Carter was not even president yet. All right, Jimmy Carter, 1976. Ed Markey has been in Washington, D.C. 10 years longer than the average person's been alive in Massachusetts. Average voter's 40 years old. He's twice the age and been in office a decade longer than they've been alive. So I'm hoping someone steps up to challenge Ed Markey. You're listening to The Hard Truth. I'm John Deaton. Have a great week. The Hard Truth is paid for by the Deaton Law Firm. I've been representing mesothelioma and lung cancer victims for 23 years across the Commonwealth. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with mesothelioma or lung cancer and were exposed to asbestos, you contact me at the Deaton Law Firm. That's DeatonLawFirm.com. You can also reach me here at this show at thehardtruthshow.com. That's John at hardtruthshow.com. John at hardtruthshow.com.
You're listening to The Hard Truth with John Deaton. John Deaton is a Marine veteran, lawyer, and best-selling author who stared down poverty, survived street violence, and beat cancer to fight another day. From the streets to the courtroom, Deaton has taken on corporate greed and fought against government fraud and overreach. Always for the little guy, a proud father of 3 girls, Deaton brings you the raw, unfiltered truth that hits hard and holds nothing back. Join us as we dive into his journey, his vision, and what he hopes to bring to the people of Massachusetts.